I'll just try that. Okay, I got this little red record button, so
Okay.
I guess it's working.
I think it's not working through Zoom though. I think that's working on the computer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's okay. We got it. Yeah. It's recording. Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to get started here. Welcome everybody. Salam alaikum. I'm so happy to be here with my friend and sister Katie Miranda and Reem Hammad, and we're really excited to be reading from the book here, A Muslim American Writers at Home. Really beautiful collection of writings that we're all privileged to be a part of. I'd like to start by reciting Surah Fatiha, the opening verses of the Quran. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين Amen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Tehmina Khan. I am speaking to you from San Francisco, which is on occupied, unceded Ohlone territory, Ramaytush Ohlone territory. We're all gathered here, mostly, I believe, from North America, from different parts of Turtle Island. It's just a great pleasure to connect with Katie and with Reem, who are writers and contributors to this anthology. I want to say that, okay, so I'm one of Katie's fangirls, and I'm wearing her hoodie here. Okay, and some of her jewelry, and so it's just like, this is really exciting. So Katie is going to read from her essay or story, and with pictures, her graphic story that's in the book. So I'd like to then turn it over to Katie.
Thank you, Tehmina. Very pleased that my story was chosen for this book. The story was written with single Muslim women in mind because there's a tremendous amount of pressure on single Muslim women to get married. And unfortunately, because of all this pressure, sometimes people make the wrong choice, like I did. But because of that experience with my first husband, I wanted to write something that would be advice, like from an older sister to a younger sister, especially because of the many horror story marriages that I've heard about in the Muslim community. So my story is called Stop Being So Picky, or Why I Didn't Marry My Cat. Your married friends, your parents, your grandparents are all telling you to stop being so picky and settle down and get married. God knows your parents didn't face the dating challenges you are. The swiping, the ghosting, the cute guy or girl who turns out to not look at all like their pictures, the "are you hot, what are you doing" messages. They tell you to stop being so picky. But what does that mean? Does it mean settling? No, not at all. It means expanding your horizons and learning and letting go of limiting beliefs. Here's an example of what that meant for me. So there I was in 2015, a 40-year-old Muslim woman, and the ink just drying on my divorce paperwork. Doomed to a life of a cat lady spinster was the expression I saw on other Muslims' faces when I told them my age and my marital status. Since I'm a convert, they knew I didn't have Muslim parents who would find me a good husband. But I wasn't giving up. After my divorce, now I finally knew what I wanted and didn't want, right? I made a list of primary qualities. He has to be cute, Muslim, be financially stable, lead a healthy lifestyle, and have no children living with him. Tall order, you say, for a 40-year-old divorcee. The thing is, these were non negotiable for me. One, I had to be attracted to him. Two, since I'm Muslim, I wanted to meet somebody who would fast Ramadan with me, go on the Hajj pilgrimage with me, and do the daily prayers together with me. It was a matter of sharing the same values and being on the same page, and I couldn't get that with a non Muslim. Three, my ex husband had been dependent on me financially, and this caused a lot of problems in the marriage. I knew I didn't want to go through that again. Four, what this meant to me was that I couldn't live with a couch potato or someone who smoked or drank. And I had met many Muslims who did both. I'm active and healthy, and I wanted someone who was also. Plus, it would make life together more fun. Five, I did not want to live with someone else's kids or be put in a stepmother role. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I knew it just wasn't for me. These things weren't checklist items for me. They reflected the values and character traits that I wanted to find in the man of my dreams. A man who was spiritual, trustworthy, responsible, and ambitious. I wanted to share my life with a man I could trust and who inspired me. Oh, and I had a list of secondary qualities, one of which, in my head, was a primary quality. He had to have been born or at least raised in the US. You see, my ex husband was not born and raised in the US, and I believed that one of the primary reasons for our divorce was the quote, clash of cultures myth. I was dead set on never considering anyone who hadn't been in the US for at least their teenage years. And no Saudis, definitely no Saudis. I have a girlfriend who was married to a Saudi, and the horror stories she told, wow, can't have any guy telling me I have to wear a hijab and that I can't drive a car, right? By the time 2016 rolled around, I had met and chatted with quite a few men over various Muslim and non Muslim apps. And I was racking up quite a collection of my own horror stories. And then on Twitter, of all places, a guy DM'd me after I posted a photo of a cafe in Portland I had been to that day. He said he had also been there that day, but we had not seen each other. We chatted a little, and he asked me out to coffee. I looked at his profile, and it said he lived in Qatif and Portland. I didn't know where Qatif was, but I took a guess it was in Saudi Arabia, and sure enough, it was. No, not a Saudi. Too bad, because he was cute. And it seemed we had a lot of shared interests, judging by his Twitter timeline. That's the thing with Twitter. You can get a pretty good idea of what the person is actually into. He was into hiking, nature, Bernie Sanders, cats, women's rights, just like me. Not exactly my stereotype of a Saudi. I cautiously agreed to go out to coffee. Fast forward 4 years, and we are married and just welcomed a son. He is everything on my primary list and more. If I had nixed him because of my prejudices about Saudis, I'd only ever met one Saudi before him, by the way, I would have nixed the love of my life. When I see 35-year-old Muslim men limiting themselves to women aged 18 to 30 in their dating profiles, it makes me wonder who they might be missing out on. There was one guy on Minder who was 5 years younger than me and who texted me, "You're pretty. Too bad you're too old for me." Yeah, too bad for him. My husband is also 5 years younger than me. When I hear women saying, well, he has to be a Punjabi Pakistani like me, or he can't be Shia, or he has to make a certain amount of money per year, or he has to be at least 6 feet tall. I wonder what kind of amazing guys they might be missing out on. What if the man of your dreams makes $5,000 less a year than your requirement, or is 5'11" instead of 6 feet? Are you willing to miss out on the love of your life based on some numbers? These are ego-based desires, not value-based desires, just like my desire to meet and marry a man who was raised in the US. One last piece of advice. While Twitter is not a dating platform, it has one advantage that the other sites and apps don't. You can truly learn a lot about someone and their actual interests by reading their timeline. Are they an argumentative asshole on Twitter? If so, it's pretty easy to tell and pass them over. Are they respectful even when they disagree with someone, or do they name call? If they name call on Twitter, they're probably going to do that to you too. Good luck to all the singles out there. I know how hard it is, but if you truly believe you will find your match and let go of limiting beliefs about what that person has to be, you will. So that's it for me. So Reem, or I'm sorry, Tehmina, you're next, right?
Thank you, Katie. I love that so much, and it's a beautiful story, and I love the illustrations, and it's just really, I think it's really humbling, and it's a reminder to I guess be open to what the divine brings our way. I'm going to read an essay called "Love in Dark Times." I wrote this immediately after the 2016 election, and I guess I would call it sort of like a meditation on family and love. And I'm really glad to read this after Katie, because it's like it's like kind of a compendium of love stories. So so a little bit about me. I'm Indian Muslim. I've grown up in the United States, mostly in the Bay Area, mostly in the South Bay. My parents live in Milpitas, where part of this story takes place, and then other parts in San Francisco. So at my parents' house in Milpitas, after a lunch of Afghan food and masala dosas, my uncle, whom we call Moin Uncle, asks my parents to tell us their love story. Now Nithro Uncle set them up, says Ami, my sister. Dad's friend, now Nithro Uncle, suggested him to Papa, my grandfather, who was a chemistry professor at Osmania University in Hyderabad, India. As Dad was finishing his PhD, Papa arranged for him to tutor Mom. But of course, Mom didn't need tutoring, we say. Mom has always been the sharpest one in the room, any room. But Lacha, said Moin Uncle, after you married, Wajid Bai came to the US and you stayed back for 6 months to wait for your visa. And that must have been so terrible to be separated from each other. And the only way to communicate was by writing letters. I want to know, what did you say to each other in those letters? Mom laughs a little. She's never been comfortable in the spotlight. The children are here, she says. There's only one child here, says Moin Uncle, looking at Omar, my 15-year-old son. My niece and nephew are off playing, but Mom stays silent. After all, her daughters are listening. Okay, so if Lacha won't tell us, Wajid Bhai, you must tell us. What did you tell each other in those letters? In those days, Dad says, it took 10 days for a letter to reach its destination, and then another 10 days to receive a response. We would forget the details to which we were responding. Of course, then we would write of romance. When finally I went to meet her at the airport, a couplet from Ghalib came to mind. Wo aaye hamare ghar khuda ki qudrat, kabhi hum unko dekhte hain, kabhi wo humko dekhte hain. She's come to me by the miracle of God, and all I can do is look at her as she looks at me. Wait, you said this to Mom? I ask. Oh, yes, my quiet, understated dad reading poetry to my mom in the airport. Wow. Moin uncle then asks all of us. We hear how Salim uncle serenaded Sogra auntie at the medical school talent show. Mere mehebu bayahe. He sings it for her still. Now, how about the young generation? Moin uncle continues. Charles looks at me. We've had a difficult year, he and I, and I'm not willing to speak first. She was late, he says, and she's still always late. I tell how I rushed to get in line for a sold-out movie at the San Francisco International Festival, and he was right in front of me. What was this movie? An Algerian movie, Cheb, about a young man who gets deported from France to Algeria after committing a petty crime. We saw a different movie together, Charles tells them. We bought tickets for the added screening of Cheb, I say. It was a good movie. Then Moin uncle turns to Usmi and Juan talks about Usmi's first day of work at La Clínica de la Raza in Oakland. She had an attitude, he says. Of course she did, I say. He tells us how a few months later in Ramadan, she was fasting and cranky. I went to ask her something and she cursed. And I thought, I like her. But Moin uncle, what about you? We ask. Shami auntie laughs and shakes her head. Okay. I had a pediatrics exam coming up and I went to check out the textbook from the library. I got the book and was about to leave and I heard someone asking for the same book. The librarian said, I'm sorry, but he has taken the book, so you will need to wait until it's returned. Then I turned around and saw her and I said, oh, you want this book? How about you take it? But please promise me you will return it in 4 days. I promise, she said. And 4 days later, I got the book. And every few pages, there was a little note from her. Shami auntie rolls her eyes. So, Omar, I want to ask you, which of these stories is the best one? My son laughs, but has no answer. And I tell them all the story from the Persian epic Shahnameh about how Manijeh, the Turkish princess, seduces Bijan, a Persian warrior. They spend several blissful days together, but when he makes ready to go back to Persia, she slips something into his wine, takes him back to her palace, and keeps him there as her kept man, until her father, the king, finds out, and well, a little war starts. That's pretty scary, says Omar. It's an idyllic afternoon, sunlight streaming through the big windows, 3 generations laughing and telling love stories. Shami and auntie and Moin uncle are visiting us from Memphis, Tennessee, and Sogra auntie and Salim uncle from Trenton, New Jersey. They have voted already, and we are all enjoying the preciousness of each other's company. That evening, Usmi and I both leave our parents' house with our husbands and kids and return back to our respective homes in Albany and San Francisco, though 3-year-old Zahir stays back so 6 grandparents can lavish their attention on him. I spend the next 2 days getting out the vote for my county supervisor. My uncles, aunties, and parents watch the election results together in Milpitas. As the electoral map turns red, I am too stunned and heartbroken to call them. How is this possible? The joyous conversation of Sunday seems a lifetime ago as the world we live in is plunged into a deep and painful darkness. My aunties and uncles go home to the task of protecting their communities. My parents in immigrant-rich Silicon Valley worry and wait. And I in San Francisco, where our progressive moderate rivalry comes to a halt, weep for the country and brace myself for the rash of hate crimes. Our family has been here for 50 years. My aunties and uncles are doctors. My parents are scientists. They have established mosques and cultural communities and have spent sleepless nights anguishing over their children's future in this new place. We've grown here and have made a home for ourselves with our hands and with our stories. And yet the resentment from the middle of the country has spoken, and it is a resentment against us for being Muslim, brown, immigrant, but also for being educated and worldly. Poor white people go to the hospital to get treated by wealthy brown doctors with accents who speak in complete sentences. Their country is changing, and here is their white lash against us. After Obama, they elect an openly bigoted and misogynist candidate for their president. He says he will build a wall. He says he will carry out a mass deportation. He says he will create a registry of Muslims. He brags about sexual assault. He says he is not my president, and so I will take him at his word until he proves otherwise. The next shell-shocked morning, we return to the task of education. Omar goes to school, and we go to City College, where Charles teaches math and I teach writing. My colleagues choke back tears. I see fear in my students' eyes. Who will be deported? Who will be harassed? Whose lives matter now? Our students are from everywhere, speak many languages, and they come here to open their minds, to think critically, to solve problems, so they may develop a career, make a decent living, and more importantly, so they may shape our world. This is why I teach writing, to help my students claim a voice and participate in public discourse. In class, we discuss the urgency of speaking out. We tell them San Francisco is a sanctuary city, and we as a city will protect them. We talk about taking care of each other, and yet we struggle to hold back the fear that we wear on our faces. We know it will not be okay, and we won't lie to our students. Omar and his classmates walk from school to Civic Center to join with over 1,000 high school students to defend their humanity and their right to exist. Last week, their theater department performed The Diary of Anne Frank, and we can't help wonder, is this happening now? On Saturday, at the oldest farmers market in the city, Grace, the Japanese-American farmer from the valley, is packing up early because Leora, her assistant, who years ago painted murals on Omar's preschool vans, is attending Muhammad's daughter's henna party in Sacramento. Muhammad is a quiet Pakistani farmer who sells persimmons and pomegranates this time of year, whose younger son is Omar's age. I tell Leora about my own henna party 20 years ago and suggest caffeinate her for a long night. Nash, the Palestinian olive grower who taught me how to cure olives, tells me things will turn out okay. We've been through bad times before. He'll have the Manzanillo olives next week, he says, unless it rains. At Suki's Indian food stall, the Afghan employee talks to 2 customers in Spanish, explaining what a samosa is. I join in, and he tells me my Spanish is good. I tell him the same, and we laugh. Khudafiz, Tehmina Jan, he says, an endearment from a stranger. I like that. I return to my 2-block street in Bernal Heights, sit in my parked car, and look at my neighbors' houses. Some of us have been here for 3 generations, and some of us have just arrived. Here, educators, nurses, nuns, construction workers, electricians, software engineers, and artists all coexist. We are Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, Jehovah's Witness, Hindu, Buddhist, and agnostic. We are Latino, African American, Asian, and European. Some of us arrived without papers and worked multiple jobs to make a home here. Our children live with single moms, single dads, 2 moms, 2 dads, grandparents, and moms and dads. Some have special needs. One is a stellar musician. We have survived eviction attempts, violence, and vandalism. We reach our hands out to Anna, whose wife Carla died of cancer, and we seek justice for Alex, who was murdered by a police officer 2 years ago. Of course, we have our differences, mostly around who's blocking whose parking space, but we greet each other by name and smile. Morgan, a trans woman who used to be an iron worker in New Jersey, pulls up on her scooter. I need to build something, she says. Can you build a wall around California? I ask, and we talk about keeping the almonds and iPhones to ourselves. 2 weeks later, we celebrate Thanksgiving with another side of my family, and we suspend our public grief for a private one. Outside by candlelight, we remember Helen, my feisty Filipina Salvadoran native San Franciscan mother-in-law who died 1 year ago on Thanksgiving Day. Kay, my African-American father-in-law, is recovering from surgery, but still serenades her memory on the saxophone of his mind. The ideal American is how a friend once described Charles. And so we give thanks in an ideal America, a family that began when a Filipino laborer asked a Salvadoran domestic worker to dance, a family that is ever opening its arms. We are Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, and Buddhist, and Muslim. Our skin tones range from espresso to cream. African-American Jalen has 2 white moms. Maya and Zoe's dad speaks to them in Russian. Little Alessandra will travel to Peru with a dozen family members to visit her grandparents. Teenage Alanis brings the Philippines back to us. And my tall teenage Omar speaks fluent Spanish and cooks Indian fusion food. We serve up dal, Peruvian potatoes, chicken adobo, and mac and cheese, along with the turkey. And we tell more love stories. We tell stories because our lives depend on them. Each story connects with other stories and keeps us human in an inhumane time. We tell stories knowing that only our collective humanity will get us through the darkness. And so I give thanks in this America, the America of jazz, Mexican ballads, Chinese opera, and Urdu love songs, the America of bok choy, daikon radish, persimmons, and chili peppers, the America that is constantly teaching me new words and new dance moves, the America that welcomes me and loves me, and that I, too, love. And this America would not exist but for the blood, sweat, and tears of so many who came before us. And so, even as I give thanks, I stand ready to protect this precious home we keep on building, one love story at a time. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tehmina.
We tell stories. That is what we do. I'd like to turn it over to Reem to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tehmina. Oh, wow, this is fabulous. How do I read after that? Hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing the space with me. I have a shorter story to share that I had written in 2006 and thought, to share it. And I'm glad it got into this book. It got placed in, I love the chapters in the book, how you divided it, Kitty, and all our editors, the home I left. And for me, having gotten married at a young age, I just, and come here, there was always that longing for home. And every time I went to visit, there was something that just kept on pulling me. And there's a story. The story is one of them. It's called Gardenia Comfort. Siham had decided to hold still, to stay home. After several failed attempts to reach her by phone a day earlier, I finally get through, and she is delighted to hear my voice. She sounds burdened and frustrated, but is warmed by the words she hears. Happy birthday, Susu, I chant to her. A moment of silence, and then an outpouring of joy mixed with sadness comes out to me across the many miles that now separate us. She had forgotten her birthday, forgotten which day it was, which year or which war she is living through. She is not panicked, but sounds overcome with shock. Not again, she says in frustration, and then briefs me on the state of chaos that has struck Beirut. People rushing to stock up on food, medicine and water, electric outages here and there, families rushing to the aid of their loved ones, a state of emergency quite familiar to the Lebanese people hardened from years of war. She asks about my journey back home and says how glad she is that I made it out of Beirut before the disaster hit. I ask her to leave the city, to get out whenever the American embassy begins to evacuate its citizens, but she stays silent. She is here to stay. She will never leave Beirut, will never leave her ailing old mother, her home, her sense of pride and safety. She will stay. She will wake up each morning, will stand on her balcony overlooking the city and watch the now silent streets of Beirut that a few days earlier were bustling with the energy of summer tourists, lively merchants, busy restaurants, and an endless web of traffic. Today, the sky is thickly gray, the air heavy, humid, with sticky smoke residue. Siham awakens again out of her morning gaze with the rushing sound of cars whizzing through the empty streets and is reminded of more pressing duties. She will dress quickly and rush out the door. She will go to see Neamat, her mother, who lives a few miles away from her. Neamat lives in an old Lebanese-style house built out of stone, with elegant arched windows and entryways, a beautiful flower-filled courtyard with a water fountain at its heart. She lives alone with her helper, a young Sri Lankan woman who cares for her basic needs day and night. Neamat is still asleep when Siham arrives. She has slept longer than usual today. She had a hard time falling asleep the night before, for she had missed the rocking melodies and loud sounds coming from the tight quarters of her neighborhood. This past night was an unusually silent night. Although Neamat is struck with Alzheimer's disease and her memory is mostly gone, she had felt something different and could not close her eyes until the familiar noise started again this morning. Siham is concerned, but for once she is in full realization of something she never thought of before. She realizes the blessing of her mother's disease on a grim day like this one. Her mother is in a different world, no sense of time, no sense of change. She has no clue what disaster has befallen her beloved Lebanon just 2 days earlier. She is sound asleep in her bed now, tucked in her fresh white linen sheets. On her side table rests a small glass of water with 3 fresh cuttings of gardenia flowers. The scent fills the air of her high-ceilinged, darkened room. Siham stands by the doorway, lovingly admiring the stillness in her mother's room, the tranquility she felt in this same house as she herself was growing up. She is safe, and this is home, and that is what will keep her here in Beirut. Thank you.
Thank you, Reem.
Thank you.
Very nice.
We would like to open it up for questions if anybody has a question.
We can also introduce other contributors who are here, and yeah, and one of our editors, Kitty.
Oh yeah, sure. Do you want to do that?
Sure. Kitty, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kitty. One of 3 editors of the book, and probably got the biggest education out of doing that process since I'm not a Muslim, and just got an incredible download, and I'm so happy that it's making its way out into the world so we can overturn the ignorance that underlies so much of the trouble that happens for people. So yeah, I'm seeing the other folks on the call that are in the anthology, and I guess didn't sign up to read, but hi everybody. Do you know who the people are, Tehmina, that are?
Would you like to introduce everybody, since you know everybody maybe better than we do?
Yeah, let me see. So Shireen Hussein, do you want to?
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. Thanks so much.
You want to say a little bit about what you wrote for the book, or where you're from, or something?
Yes, just my piece is a story called The Lunch Hour. It's just kind of like the differences between the UK and the US, and sort of my journey from there to here, and my time in San Francisco. So it's kind of like a little tribute to San Francisco. There we go. So
I have to say that one, when we were considering it, I said, well, but it's not about being Muslim. And the other 2 editors who are Muslim are like, yes, yes, we're just people that have things happen and we write. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's about the store Woolworths. I didn't know you could sign up to read. Actually, I just kind of saying hello to everybody here. But yeah, it's if for those who remember, there was a big Woolworths on Market Street, and so that's what the story's about. So
Cool. Let's see. And Salma, you're another Bay Area person.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I live in Berkeley. And thank you so much. And I enjoyed Tehmina and Reem and Katie just reading their own material. It's so interesting. Tehmina, I loved your story more when you read it.
Thank you.
So it made very interesting and very revealing, like it becomes more alive. And thank you. I'm in this book also with some of my poems. I'm a very spiritual artist and writer. So my poems is about my worship, my devotion, my faith. So maybe some other time I'll get a chance to recite them with Katie. We are planning on 5th of April.
Yeah, we're gonna do another reading
Yes.
in April.
Yeah, so maybe then we can recite. That'll be wonderful if all of you come. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's 2 more people on, wait, let's see, 3 more people on the call that have pieces in the book. Kristen Obarski, you there? Here she is.
Hi, I'm from Minnesota, and I started writing just because I'm a homeschooler and I was having a really hard time with finding material for my children that was for minorities. It was really hard. And then along at the same time, my mom gave me a binder of our history. So I'm an American convert and I have really strong roots dating back to the Mayflower. And when I was writing this piece, it was for my own healing, but 2, it was a reflection for me to look at my past and how it can strengthen me today, and how I can value my past and almost appreciate it more as a minority than I did as just like your mainstream Caucasian white girl. So that's kind of where I was coming from. And my conclusion was, right now we are making history. So what part of history do you want to be on? Or what side of history do you want to be on? Do you want to be a change maker? Or do you just want to be someone who's just kind of on the sidelines? So it was just kind of, that was what my piece was about. And I really enjoyed it. It was very healing for me because it was really hard when you come into being from a majority into a minority. It's a big change. And it's kind of, I think a lot of the other writers share this same experience. So that was what my piece was about.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Certainly opened my eyes. But especially just hearing who some of the converts are, whose roots go so far back in this country, it's like, whoa, everybody needs to hear this. They think they know who the Muslims are in this country. But yeah. So Ambata, another Bay Area person, Ambata Kasihans.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I'm not Zoom camera ready. But yeah, just happy to be here and to hear from some of the writers today. And yes, I have a story in the book as well. Under the Blue Tent is a fiction piece that I wrote that is a departure from what I typically write, which is more so from a perspective I'm more familiar with, being Black and Muslim and from the Southern United States, New Orleans particularly. So it was an exercise in, I guess, a lot of things, but taking on a persona very different from my own, which is male and African immigrant, but also the struggles with identity that I think we can all relate to in different ways. Yeah, so I'm just happy to be a part of the group.
Thank you so much.
I read your book. I read your story. I loved it.
Thank you very much.
I did, really. Very nice.
Let's see, we've got more people jumping on here too. Shamima, you want to tell us a little bit about your contribution?
Hi everyone, I'm Shamima. I'm not from San Francisco, although I was supposed to be there. My best friend lives there, so I visited and I'm missing it. But I'm in Ottawa in Canada and the snow is finally evaporating here. So we have spring. So I'm no longer as jealous of the beautiful backgrounds I see with those of you in San Francisco. So I have two poems. I'm very lucky. I have two poems here. But it's funny because I feel like they're a small reflection of me as a writer. I write so many different things. I write poems and prose and short stories and essays, but I happen to submit poems for this anthology. And Kitty, I thought it was really interesting when you said, I think Shireen's piece, oh, it's not about being Muslim. I kind of love that because, you know, yes, I'm Muslim, but too often, especially in North America, it kind of puts me in a box. And people expect me to be kind of like an ambassador for Islam or Muslims or some sort of representation, or they have perceptions. And I love just being a person, you know. But of course, we have these things, you know, I'm a hijabi, I'm Desi, I'm brown, I'm Canadian, sneaking into an American anthology. But so it's interesting that the two pieces that were chosen, I feel they reflect this kind of complicated relationship I have with Islam right now. I think it really changed for me because I was born in a Muslim country, grew up in a Muslim country, and then moved to a country that was not Muslim. And that was a huge adjustment. And then 9/11 happened. And I just started having a really complicated relationship with being a Muslim and with praying. And I feel like it was so easy for me as a child. I felt so close to God and I felt so proud and happy to be Muslim. And then as a teenager and as a young adult, I started kind of questioning rituals and prayer. So the two poems that I have kind of try to examine prayer and try to examine our relationship with God, like my relationship, I guess. But and I think the struggle has maybe brought me closer, you know, like maybe if it was easier, it wouldn't have been so close. But I'm very interested in the idea of praying because, you know, as a child, I prayed all the time, but not the specific 5 times a day prayer that is ordained for us. So anyway, that's what those two pieces are about. But I actually prefer writing poems about vegetables in the fridge or a sneeze at a bus station or, you know, falling, crashing into a puddle of love. So I have a lot of different topics. I don't always want to write about being Muslim. I just like the experience of being human. And for poetry in particular, people seem to have a perception of poetry, and I've made it sort of my personal mission to get people who hate poetry to read poetry. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Shamima. Yeah, the spirituality in your piece is very universal. And when we received your pieces, I had just recently had a conversation with Akil, who has pieces in the book, but also did the cover design and the layout. And he had just, you know, another bit of enlightenment here for me. Like he had just said, part of the misunderstanding is that people think that that Muslims worship a different God than, you know, well, at least the other Abrahamic religions, let's say. And then your pieces came, and it was like, oh, this is a perfect example. You know, they're not the only ones, but it's just a perfect example of that. And just so many little things. I don't even know, did I have that misunderstanding? But it just gets correct as you read, right? I don't even know if I had that misunderstanding, but it's like, oh, good, now I don't have that anymore. Anyway.
I so appreciate that comment. Thank you, Kitty.
So we only have about 10 minutes left. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions.
Well, Gadir is also on the call too, who had jumped in. Should we give her a moment before that? This didn't go the way you expected though, Katie, huh?
It's okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Sorry, I came late. I don't think I will participate this time. I'm not ready. I have my event reading. It will be in March 27. It's coming this Saturday at 7 p.m. Um, uh,
I'm posting it again.
Eastern.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I'm posting it in the chat.
Yeah,
But-
Eastern Daylight Time. It will be 7 p.m. Eastern Daytime, Daylight Time, and it's from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. You are welcome to participate in the reading. It will be in Zoom and also recorded. Um, I posted in Meetup, in Facebook, and Eventbrite. So yeah, please, you can reserve there, and let me know if you want to read. You can email me. I can give you my email here. This is my email. Feel free to email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ghadir. Yeah, so the information is in the chat. And we'd love for people to ask questions. Or if anyone has any comments.
I just wanted to know how the idea of the book came about and what was the selection process and where was this posted?
You want to answer that, Kitty?
How the book came about, the selection process, and what was the third part?
I guess where it was posted, right?
Yes, I mean, how did you advertise the book thing about selection?
Yeah.
And I don't know so well the answer to that last question. Valerie Bahiari did the posting and knew where to post. So maybe we can get that answer from her next time she's on with us. But Valerie Bahiari, who's a hijabi from Toronto who now lives in Saudi Arabia, she had the idea, and we met in an online writing workshop and writing class, therapeutic writing class, and she approached me about it, and I said, "Wow, that sounds like a great idea." And we started in, and then invited Hanan Hazimian, who also lives in Toronto, and yeah, we all just read them and considered the literary quality, the themes, the how things fit together, and just what needs to be said. Just doing casting a broad net for that. What seems like, oh yeah, that people need to know this. So the theme kept kind of deciding itself in the themes kind of decided themselves depending on what people said. But with that idea of like, what is home, and what when do you feeling welcome or not welcome, understood and not understood, those themes, and you all came up with the rest. So.
Thank you, because there's a lot of Muslim women, and I love the idea. It's not just as being a Muslim woman, but being an American hyphenated from another roots, from another part of the world. We bring a rich tapestry of our heritage, being an American from that part of the world. So I'm really looking forward, and Reem is our friend and our sister, and she is one of the best people on earth as a human being, not as anything, no other identities. And I'm sure I'm looking forward to reading all of your works. Thank you very much.
And there are 9 Canadians in the book. The intent was to have both Canadian and U.S. Muslims in it, just so people know that.
So Shamima, I saw you raised your hand. You had a question?
Yeah, I thought it was all 3 of you read so beautifully and brought your beautiful writing to life. There's such power when the writers, recite their work. I guess the question is for all 3 of you is, how long did it take you to write those beautiful pieces? They have you know, as a fellow writer, that you made it look effortless, but there's a lot of shaping of some of that material. I could feel, right? Like there were themes woven in, or there were callbacks. And I mean, Katie, you're one, right? Where you kind of have these criteria and the second, anyway, how long did it take you approximately to kind of come up with the idea and then have that finished piece?
I actually wrote mine as a blog post for my friend who was a relationship coach. And I just like wrote it like as a kind of gift for her. And it didn't really take me that long because I don't know, it's not a very long story, but the illustrations took quite a bit longer. Yeah, I don't know. I just I learned such a important lesson after having this prejudice against Saudis, even though I'd only ever met one, and then, you know, learning this very important lesson. And I really wanted to share that with other people because I know we all have our own prejudices. It's just part of being human. But yeah, I just wanted to share my lesson with other people because it was very humbling.
And Kate, your one especially, as you were reading, I was like, oh my God, I can think of 8 people right now who should be in this Zoom listening to this story, you know?
Get them the book. Give them.
I will, for
give
sure.
them the book. You can buy it. I'm going to paste a link for people to buy it. It's on my website. And Katie, if you want to paste a link to buy it on the publisher's website, go ahead.
It's so great you're having that example for people too, that if they have a way to market things on their site, then that the book can be one of the things they market. So I'm really glad you're doing that, and a way to pay yourself back a little bit for your efforts, hopefully.
Tehmina or Reem, did you want to answer Shamima's question?
Yeah, so I think for me, I wrote this with a sense of urgency. Often I'll take years to complete a poem, but this one I had a sense, this essay had a real sense of urgency to it. And so I read it, I wrote it pretty quickly or just like, or, you know, maybe not quickly, but obsessively, probably, you know, at 2 a.m. And then I kept working with it, and I read it out loud to my my colleagues a couple of times, and then it turned, and then one of my colleagues works for a local theater company where they do solo performance, and he says, well, why don't you come read it on our, you know, it's like they have a Monday night series. And so I ended up reading it in one of our local theaters. So like it was probably, I don't know, late November. So it was, I mean, so election is early November, late November is when I read it as a performance piece. So and then, you know, worked on it some more after that. So yeah.
The secret comes out. You read it so powerfully. I was like, this is like a one-woman show or something. And now the secret is coming out.
Yeah, I had like crash rehearsal for that one. Yeah.
Reem, do you want to?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I included this piece in the call when Valerie sent the call. I just said I don't have material right now, but I had been in a writer's workshop for a few years in 2005, 2006, and with Maya Danziger. It's called Relax and Write, and I never, like, I wrote maybe poems in the past when I was, you know, but this was like, it was surprising to me that this process had channeled so much of what's deep inside, what's residing deep inside of me. It was just incredible. It just floored me. Just like, oh, did I write this? And this piece specifically, it was towards the end, before I left this writing group. And I had just come back from Lebanon after where Israel invaded Lebanon. Lebanon was sparkling with energy, and and I had just left 5 days after things went bad. So it was, I think these things, it's the emotions that brought it to life in the space that was provided to me in the class, in the meditation, after the meditation. And it was just, I didn't even have to edit much. I don't know if Kitty has altered anything from it, but I didn't notice any too much editing, but you know, it's just that channeling out.
Edit anything without collaborating with people. So
Yeah.
nothing you didn't know about.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Tehmina, did you want to share about your upcoming class before we end the meeting?
Thank you. So I'm going to be teaching a class, a 5-week class through City College of San Francisco Extension. It's the title of the class is Bearing Witness, Turning History into Poetry. We'll be looking at a lot of poems that engage with history and writing. And these are really, really kind of, I have like 2 participants in the room here. Kitty and Ariela, but we're really, I mean, we have a lot of, we write through conversation with the poems we're reading, conversation with each other. And it's just really a relaxing experience. And so I encourage you to check it out. I put the link in the chat. And if you actually, there's a code, there's a discount code. The code is early bird, one word. It might need all caps. I don't know. If it doesn't work, try all caps, but early bird for 25% discount. So I'm just putting that in there. So please, I would love for any and all of you to come join me. That's all. And Katie, will you tell us about your art?
Sure. Yeah.
About your jewelry?
I'm an artist. I'm a painter, a calligrapher, and a jewelry designer. My art and jewelry. Oh,
there we go.
Tehmina's wearing one of my bracelets. I'm actually wearing the matching necklace right now.
Good, my earrings.
My art and jewelry can be viewed at katiemiranda.com. I just typed the link in there.
And I'm wearing one of Katie's hoodies.
Yeah. It says Vikar Wa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remembrance of God and faith. Yeah. So that's about it, everybody. Thank you all for coming. I was really pleased to see so many people come. So thank you.
Hear about the book. Maybe I see it so much in classrooms and discussions for so many. So if you know anybody who's educators, I know my friend Gail Nichols and Robert, I mean, retired teacher, but there's a lot of people that have a lot of big circles. So please send it out. It's important. This is high time for us to be heard.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say, as we have different programs and they get recorded, they will become their own sort of curriculum as you guys get interviewed, or like what Tehmina and I did. It feels like, okay, that's one. I mean, anyway, so I think we're gathering something that can be used that way over time, and anybody's creativity about that is most welcome.
I totally respect the educator perspective. As a person not in the education field, I've been posting about it on social media, and I think, so many people will identify with this, and so people hopefully will pick it up that maybe need to read it. So I'm spreading the word, and of course, friends want to support friends. So a few of my friends are buying it just to kind of support me, but I hope they end up realizing that they just got themselves an amazing gift, because there's such incredible work in it. And it's something I'm super proud of.
All right. So, well, thank you, everybody. Oh, sorry. Reem?
I'm sorry, Reem called me out, so I have to say hi and congratulations to all the women here on the call. But I do want to say one thing about education is that this is the time when a lot of people of color are fighting for ethnic studies in our schools. And this is a perfect match to kind of encourage that conversation. So I will pass it on to those powers that be.
Thank you. All right, I
Okay.
have to get going, and since I am the host, I'm going to end the meeting now, but I appreciate
Thank you,
every one
everyone.
of you
Thank
showing up.
you.
Thanks,
Tehmina,
everybody.
thank you
all.
so much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.